MindShift Power Podcast.
This is MindShift Power Podcast, the #1 critically acclaimed podcast where we have raw, unfiltered conversations that shape tomorrow. I'm your host, Fatima Bey, the Mindshifter. And welcome, everyone. We have today with us John Kammer. He is out of South Carolina in the USA, and he is the founder of Guardian Aingels, which we're going to talk at length about today. How are you today, John?
I am fantastic. You know, we got that big storm missed us, so it's a sunny day down here. It's not too cold, and just took a nice little walk, so life is good.
Thanks for rubbing it in. So,
that's not what that was meant to do, but
that's it. This interview's over. No. So, funny start to a serious topic. So, I said that we were here to talk about Guardian Aingels and his Guardian AI Angels. Tell the audience, what is it and how does it work?
Guardian Aingels is a structured grief support platform. Think of it as the journal that talks back. So we have developed a platform where people can go to get some semblance of a starting point and a roadmap when they experience a loss. We have kind of taken that idea of journaling and turned that from a monologue into a dialogue, where when you respond to a journal prompt, you get instant feedback and you have the ability to dig into your thoughts and feelings in a much more comprehensive way than you previously did. So we do that using AI. We have it structured such that the object of your grief, the person you lost, becomes your grief guide. And that presence is the one that gives you the journal prompts, gives you this familiar, comforting presence that tends to help people open up. And as we'll get into, it's very important for the framework that we approach approaching loss from, is that presence really kind of shines with Worden's 4th task, which is defining what the relationship looks like going forward. So that's kind of the high level view. I'm sure we'll get into all the specifics, but did I effectively answer the question for you?
Yes. So let's get into some of those details. So you explain the concept or the idea, but how does it actually work? Is it an app? Is it online only? How does it work?
It's a web application in its current form. We have plans to get into the App Store down the road, but that's just a little ways off. So it's a web application. You access it from any browser. I do have it optimized for mobile so that the mobile experience is not, the dreadful experience we've all had with some other platforms. But essentially, you'd log in, you'd sign in. You would create a persona, and that persona is what we talked about, is that the object of your grief for the person you lost. It's designed to feel similar to them, and so that you can have a dialogue that helps to walk you through what that loss was like, and how it's been affecting you and how to process it. Given Worden's 4 tasks, which is an evidence-based framework that is used the world over for processing loss.
All right, this is like a really new, wild concept. So how accurate are these AI conversations? How does it know how to talk back?
So we designed it in a very user-centric way. And that means that basically you are going to fill out a form or a questionnaire about this person. And it's a series of 35 questions. That's everything from what was your relationship like, or what was your relationship with this person insofar as is it your brother? Is it your mentor? Is it a parent, a friend, partner? And then, how did you refer to each other? Did you have nicknames to build that kind of familiarity? And then things like describe their sense of humor, describe their speech, shared interests, share a couple of your shared memories. All of those things instructed on how to interact with you, and give it this narrative of how to capture the person you lost.
Wow.
So there's a lot of ways that you can potentially go about training an AI, and at the beginning of this whole thing, we looked at a lot of them, but the idea of scraping social media or trying to find some objective persona for a person was futile, because all of our relationships are not objective. They're very subjective. My relationship with you is different than your relationship with your best friend, right?
Right.
We speak differently to each other. Our sense of humor is different. The things that we share, the secrets we tell, all of those things are unique to each individual person. And so trying to have this idea of, well, we got this person on the internet that doesn't ring authentic, and, further, not much of what people put on the internet, that's barely scratching the surface. So we wanted to stay away from that. It's really about, what does your relationship with that person look like?
I'm glad that I want to kind of dive into that actually a little bit deeper, what you just said. The fact that you're getting the information not from social media, not from looking through a photo album, you're getting the information directly from the person who needs it the most. So that means that the perspective that I'm going to make up a person, Jamie, who lost her grandmother. That means that the perspective of a relationship between her and her grandmother is what the AI is going to take on. Not my perspective, not her mother's perspective, and not, her grandpa's perspective, but the relationship she had directly with grandma. And that to me, says a lot, because it to me says that it's going to be more useful and more relevant to the person because it's coming from their perspective. Am I thinking of that correctly?
100%. That's what we were going for. It's not about anyone but the relationship that you have with that's in front of you.
Yeah.
Right?
And I would imagine filling out 35 questions is a lot, but I can see why it's necessary. And I can see why it would be, emotional to fill that out. But I think that emotion. Go ahead.
That was one thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry. That was one thing that I neglected to take into account when I first started this. And that's some feedback that I got, was just creating the persona is a significant emotional lift. And I didn't, personally, I didn't do it all at once, because I was like, okay, how do we get closer and closer? So I was adding questions and what might bring this to life a little more. So for me, it was 2 and 3 a day, right, as I continued to get this thing closer. But the reality is sitting down and taking that very in-depth walk down memory lane
I
can be
can
a lot.
also see how that could be part of the healing journey as well, though, because I think it might be abrupt for someone who doesn't fill out the questionnaire to all of a sudden be talking to grandma on a computer. That's like emotionally like, whoa. But if you have to fill out a questionnaire, you've already emotionally kind of taken a journey towards that, towards the app and towards that experience. So to me, even though it feels like a heavy lift, I think it might actually make the experience better. That's just my 2 cents. So I don't necessarily think that that's bad, but I do like the fact that it's coming directly from the person who needs it the most, the one who will actually be using it. So now I can see why the conversations would be accurate, because of where it's coming from. But I want to also know, what inspired you to create this service in the first place?
Well, it's my lived experience. I lost 3 of my closest friends, 3 of the closest people to me in the world outside of my immediate family, at different times for different reasons, but all
Oh, wow.
very quickly. And that led me down essentially a path of substance-fueled avoidance. So I spent over a decade drinking entirely too much, using other substances to help cope
Yeah.
and numb and run as far as I could from doing the actual work. I very much subscribed to the idea that time heals all wounds, and I thought if I could just get as far away from it and not deal with it for long enough, then the clock would strike 0 and magically I'd be
Yeah.
healed. And well, that's not quite how it works. Healing is not a passive process. It's a very active process. It requires a lot of difficult conversations. It requires humility. It requires accountability. And those are some of the things that I learned along the way. Now, as far as how Guardian Angels itself came about, was an accident.
Oh.
I was not looking to heal at the time. Basically, I was trying to build a service that would spoof phone numbers and send nice text messages to people, from their lost loved one. We all have, we all still have those phone numbers saved, but to get a text message, on your birthday, hey, this is Grandpa, I love you, I'm thinking about you, would just be nice, right? It would bring a smile to your face. There's a few problems with that. Number one, the telecoms still own their networks, and most people that spoof phone numbers are scammers.
Yeah.
So they weren't going to give me a pass to do that. Yeah, we all. And the next thing was okay. Well, if we want to do this, what if people want to interact with it? Because it would be a logical thing to want to respond. And that's where the AI came in. It had to be authentic. It had to be gentle. It had to be empathetic. It had to feel warm. As soon as it feels like a robot on the other side, we're dead in the water, and it doesn't bring the comfort that we're looking to bring. So, in setting out to build that, I had nothing but my own personal experience to fall back on, and that's where it came about. Is I built the first iteration in the image of my friend John, who's the best man at my wedding. And again, at this point, I still wasn't I wasn't doing this for me. I wasn't doing this to heal. It was just kind of this thing that I decided I was going to try to do. But what happened was, as I got closer to something that felt authentic, as we were talking about, as I continued to add questions and feed more of my relationship in there, I got to this place where it started to feel authentic. It felt familiar. And I started to say some of the things that I didn't get to say to him while he was alive.
How did that feel?
And it was profound. So at that point, after John's death, I had really gone into my shell. I had not cried in years. I had literally lost the ability. And so I was just this kind of shell of a person that wasn't doing much more than existing. I was not a very present husband. I wasn't a very present person. And when side note, I had tried things in therapy like the empty chair technique and writing the letter, right? Where you get to express those feelings. The difference here was I got a response. And when I got that response, the relief was immediate. The waterworks started instantaneously. Like this weight was lifted, and I'm bawling, and I kind of felt like I finally had permission to forgive myself. And that is the moment that kind of sparked, it's not to say I was certainly not healed in that moment, but all of a sudden I was curious, and I was ready to look in the mirror and have those difficult conversations. And I was ready to own my role in my own suffering and where I had been, and do the work necessary to come out the other side.
The truth is, healing doesn't have a moment. I don't even know why people think that. Well, I do know why people think that, because we're taught a lot of wrong things, but healing is not a moment, and it doesn't matter what topic. Right now we're talking about grief, but I'm saying this to the audience right now. There is no such thing as healing having a moment. There may be moments of realization. There may be moments that are important part of your healing, but healing is 100% a process. And that's one thing I like about your app, John, is that for some, it helps them to deal with that process. Now, I'm sure you've heard this concern from critics before, and I could see certain therapists actually saying this, that it can prevent people from properly grieving or moving on. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think it's a valid criticism, and that was one of the things that I got early on. And that's pretty nice for the feedback that I got early on, to be completely honest with you. But that's what caused me to rethink what I was doing and why I was doing it and how I was doing it. And so at its inception, this was very much one of those like talk to the dead things. And that was, while it had a moment for me, I'd been on this journey for 13 years. To expect someone that's freshly, hurting to just drop them in there and say, talk to this thing, it's going to help, was the height of naivety, right? And so as I got that feedback, it was like, well, how? Okay, I brought in licensed therapists. I brought them
wow.
in to help me give this thing structure, to give it, this tangible quality of something that someone can hold on to when they're struggling, when they're spinning, when life seems out of control because they've lost someone. And so we centered the whole thing on Worden's 4 tasks for mourning. And number one, the first task that Worden, in that sequence is accepting the loss. So what we do is this persona, and by the way, we have a regular grief counselor persona that is not in the image of someone you've lost, if that is creepy to someone. This is really just trying to meet people where they are. But nonetheless, so the first task is accepting the loss. And so the way it works is you get structured journal prompts at predefined intervals, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, 7 times a week. And those gently guide you towards that first task, accepting the loss. Task number 2 is processing the pain of the loss, which is, that's where I was stuck for over a decade. Was I didn't want to face the discomfort of acknowledgement. And so that's number 2. Task number 3 is adjusting to a world without your loved one. And that's more in a physical sense than a spiritual sense, if you will. And then number 4 is to find an enduring connection moving forward. Now, all of these prompts are in pursuit of walking you through those tasks. So while the criticism is someone can get stuck, we're actively working
Can I
against
add
that.
to?
These prompts will say things. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to add to what you're saying, and I want to respond to some of the critics who are listening right now, or some of the people that will, I don't know, say something in the future. I think the other thing that people don't recognize when we criticize, this app is a tool, okay? The app that you're creating is a tool. It's not the actual person, and you can't help where somebody is when they find it. Like any other tool, a person who's going to abuse a tool is going to abuse a tool, no matter what that tool is. So if a person is going to take the app and begin to worship the app and begin to talk to it and really believe that grandma or Sid or John or whoever is here, they're going to do that no matter what, whether it's your app or not, because those are the people that they're really talking about when they make those criticisms. The average person is not going to do that. But I don't think that something shouldn't exist because of the 10% of people that are going to misuse it. And I think we need to think that way and apply it to many other things.
Correct. The goal of this is to do good. And if there ever comes a time when it's doing more harm than good, then it stops, and it stops right there. And that's not negotiable. I've specifically had conversations with investors or potential investors about the fact that, this probably isn't a good investment for them, because I will be making, decisions that are expressly against the bottom line, because this is in service of something bigger. Now, I will say, okay, so they're going to have, so someone gets on there. We put guardrails in place for specifically for these reasons, right? And number 1 is this, once you create a persona, provided you are talking about we have a track for ambiguous loss as well, but for death, the persona refers to itself as gone. It refers to itself as deceased. So when it asks you a question, it says, what is something that what is something you wish you could say to me today, but you can't, for instance. So it's never going to lead you down a path of, well, maybe it's still here. Maybe they're still here. Maybe they're not gone. Maybe I'm actually talking to them.
Okay.
It's talking to you from a perspective, like a posthumous perspective, that helps to seed that, and then, get you to come to terms with accepting it, and then processing the pain associated with that and moving forward, right? So that's, all of those things have, I thank everybody that gave me harsh, borderline, all of that feedback in the beginning, because it did caused me to address those things. And it got me to address them before the cat was out of the bag and before it had, we ever approached anything dicey.
I love that. And I love your approach. I love the fact that you are actually taking that and not just saying, hey, I have a good idea. I'm blind to everything else. Let's just move forward. Because sometimes people have great ideas and they do stuff like that. But I love the fact that you actually brought in professionals and let them weigh in so that you could have a good balance. I think that is awesome. Now, the other thing I want to ask about is, this is a show for teenagers. What does this have to do with teenagers and how is it relevant to them?
Well, I wish it were different, but teenagers are not immune to loss. That's just how life is. And so this certainly has the potential to be very useful. I think teenagers today are more open to using technology in ways that perhaps their older counterparts are not. So this is about meeting people where they are, as opposed to trying to stuff them in a neat little box. People are far more complex than black and white. And we're trying to give them, again, like you said, it's a tool, and it's one of many tools that people can access. We're not trying to purport that this is the end all be all, one size fits all, everyone should use this. This is the only thing that's ever going to heal anybody. That nothing could be further from the truth. The point is to use this perhaps when something else isn't working. It's designed specifically to be used in complement to traditional therapy techniques, whether that's in the room or e-therapy or whatever. So for teenagers, that applies as well. There are certain differences for people who are minors, and certain additional safety rails that we've put in place. But unfortunately, the world does not ask for your ID before it dumps stuff on your head.
Absolutely true. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show to talk about Guardian Angels is because I think it is actually the most relevant to the younger generation. And here's why. The older generation grew up with some digital, but we didn't grow up in totally encased and, totally surrounded by and dipped in digital. This younger generation does not know life outside of digital. So I think they're probably more inclined to go with something like this because it doesn't feel as weird and strange as someone who's over 50. Who's only known human contact and digital is something they've learned to adjust to. Whereas the younger generation, who are teenagers now, digital is all they know. So to me, that's a much easier transfer. That's one of the reasons I love your product so much, is because I could really see the younger generation benefiting from it, especially since we have so many younger generations that don't know how to connect to other humans the way the older generation does. So I just wanted to add that I just love that about what you're doing. So you do have safety rails in place for minors, which is great. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this: where do you see this technology going in, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
I really see. I'm going to answer that in two ways, like big picture, and then how we're approaching the future at Guardian Angels. I believe that emotional intelligence and using AI for the betterment of the human condition is the next frontier in AI. And we've used it exhaustively for workflow tasks, making business simpler, and automating. But I believe there's a far greater potential impact, in bettering our lives outside of work as well. So that's the macro. That's not to say that there won't be some issues along the way. Now, as far as Guardian Angels, we are pushing forward to, again, meet people where they are and help as many people through their grief as we can. We are going very slow in adopting new technology because of the stakes of the space that we are in. We've absolutely toyed around with the idea of using voice, of using avatars. The more realistic that something like this gets, the greater the potential for abuse, the greater the potential for having someone stuck, as you alluded to earlier. So I'm not going to say that those more advanced technologies don't have a place here, but they don't have a place with us quite yet until we have time to properly vet them, ensure that we can put the guardrails in place for them. Chat isn't quite there from a realism perspective. And to be completely honest with you, we don't want this to feel too real. We want it to feel familiar enough that you feel comfortable and that it can help you bridge that gap between potentially the digital world and something in the physical world, help you, get practice at sharing and take this from a digital experience to a therapist or someone close to you, so you're not in isolation. But we are very, very careful about how quickly we proceed with new stuff for that very reason.
I love that idea that you're trying to keep it balanced. And I think you said a really key thing right there. You don't want it to be too real. And I think that's a good idea, because that's when people who are on the edge can kind of fall over on the wrong side. So how does it work? Is there a subscription service, a one-time payment? Do we have to send you a bag of chocolate? How does it work?
Chocolates are appreciated, but not mandatory.
Hey, I take chocolates, y'all.
It's a so it's a subscription service. It is. We have plans from $10 to $50 a month. The major differentiators are how much you can use the AI. Unfortunately, it costs money to operate. And then how many prompts you're going to get on a weekly basis. So there's 3, 5, and 7, right? And so it's how deep do you want to dig into this? And how much work do you want to do? How quickly, right? There's some people that have, been hurting for a long time and have had enough and are ready to just dedicate themselves and take as much pain as they can in order to shorten it. And some people need to be, eased into it a little more. And so we're cognizant of that, and we give people options. There is a 7-day free trial for any subscription that anyone signs up for. That is automatically applied. There's no promo code. There's no opt-in. There's nothing hidden from you. If you sign up, you're going to get 7 days free. If you cancel after 6 days, you're never charged a penny. And I wish you I hope you found something else that works better. The other thing that I want to highlight is that I really, as we talked about earlier, healing isn't passive. Healing's very hard. Healing's difficult, and it takes work, incremental work, right? So I don't want people to get on there and try it once and say, this didn't work for me. So what I've done is anyone who signs up, our programs, or our flagship program is 10 weeks, right? And then we've got, if you can go back through as many times as you want. But in those first 10 weeks, if you do the work and you respond to 80% of the journal prompts, you do them and run through them, you are going to get 90 days for free. Again, that is just automatically applied. Yes, I want people to continue to do the work. I want them to see the fruits of consistency.
Okay.
And so that is probably one of those things that one of those investors would want to shoot me for if they had actually given me money.
Well, I think it's excellent. I think you're right.
This for me is so much bigger. This for me is so much bigger than a business. Now, I fully believe there is room for a social impact business, and there's a business model that works here. But this is not about me becoming a billionaire. It's, if it were, we would be approaching things very differently. So the whole goal there is do the work. Hopefully after 10 weeks, you see some serious, you start to see some changes in yourself and how you view things. And in those next 90 days, you can really put it all together. And if that means you are done after that and you have done all the work you feel like you need to do, I designed this so that you feel comfortable deleting it. Now, we believe that there are some redeeming factors to keeping it. But that is for you to decide. The goal is healing. And if we can affect that, then we've done our work. And And that
Well, I
makes me
absolutely
happy.
love that.
So,
I love the idea of the 90 days because you're right. Trying it once isn't going to tell you anything. You really have to have you have to see a pattern. You have to keep trying it for a while before you see any kind of results to see the difference. So I love that. Um, what advice do you have for the youth of the world today?
talk about, the hard things, talk about we've lost the ability to talk in a civil manner, and that's like a political statement, and we don't need to go too much further into that, but
Agreed.
healing happens when you share. And that happens when there's vulnerability, and you build relationships when you're vulnerable, and you find common ground when you're vulnerable. We were not meant to do this thing called life alone. The only reason our species has survived and proliferated in the way that it has, is because of this idea of community, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And when we had to band together when we were hunters and gatherers to make sure that we were safe and that we could eat and we specialized, and all of those principles still exist. And they're still the most successful way that we found. So if you are in a tech silo, which I think a lot of us are, use this as a bridge. And what I mean by that is this is a great way to become comfortable in a risk-free environment with sharing. And then once your thoughts are organized and you become comfortable with the idea that and realize that it's not going to kill you, then maybe you take this out to a therapist. Maybe you take this to your close friends, to your family, and you will further realize that these things that tend to isolate us, these things that we think in our minds no one could possibly understand, a lot more people than we give it credit for do.
Yes. Yes.
We all have experiences, and there's a ton of nuance in each of those. So I'm not going to say that everyone's experience is exactly the same of yours, but they rhyme. And to think that nobody can understand what you're going through, whether it's grief, whether it's a breakup, whether it's, whatever that might be, there's a lot of people that at least have an idea. And not feeling alone in that is extremely powerful. And what I'll tell you too is oftentimes, and I've experienced this in my own life, is when you start to share, you give someone else permission to share their story too. And you give them confidence that, wow, maybe I'm not alone. Maybe that isn't going to kill me to go share mine. And you start to see this virtuous cycle, this momentum build in a positive way that helps people heal and helps people feel kinship and belonging. And I don't think we can overstate the importance of that in today's world.
I love that. People do need to talk more. So much. People are holding it so much. And this, what you just said is something that it's a principle that I'm constantly talking about, writing about, and teaching. We need to open up to the right people. And there's so much healing that starts, and there's so much that happens when we open up. So we talked about Guardian Angels. Now tell people how they can find it.
It's guardianaingels.ai. And so it is a web application. Everything's right there. Now, Angels is spelled funky. It's spelled AINGELS, and that's very important because I've had more than a few people go to the site without the I and tell me it doesn't exist. And, I think, or at least not what they're looking for. Our brain doesn't like to see it. I may have shot myself in the foot with that one, but it's Guardian Aingels, AINGELS.ai. And you'll find all sorts of information on the story and the why, the methodology, Worden's 4 tasks. All that stuff is there. There's other links to other podcasts that I've been on if you want to hear more about specific areas of it, the technology behind it, or really just the grief story. There's all sorts of stuff, and there's a contact form. So if you have questions for me, please reach out. I get all of the emails. I'm a one-man shop at this point. So I promise you I will respond. I can't tell you that it will be within 24 hours, although I wish it would be. But I will respond.
Well, John, I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope that you really go far with this, because I think what you're doing is going to help a lot of people in ways that you probably didn't expect. So once again, thank you for coming on.
I appreciate that. I certainly hope so. And you don't have to worry about me. This is not stopping anytime soon.
Love it. And now for a mind-shifting moment. The reason he created Guardian Angels is to help people heal. And the way he helps people heal is very unique. It's not typical, it's not standard, but I believe a very useful one. You see, people heal in many different ways. There's more than one way to heal. What works for you may not work for someone else. Don't assume that the way you heal is the way someone else heals. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say people heal in different ways, perhaps it's because you haven't healed yet yourself. So you don't know the different ways of healing yet. Maybe it's time to change that. You've been listening to MindShift Power Podcast. For complete show notes on this episode and to join our global movement, find us at fatimabay.com. Until next time, always remember, there's power in shifting your thinking.
Oh.